Hey everyone, we're here and we're doing the best Final Fantasy of ever. That's not how words work. Let's check out what's going on here with Lightning. Look at this, Lightning in this big old box, which means it's probably, you guessed it, really big. It is not a 1/12 scale. I don't know what scale it is, but she's like 9 inches plus. Before we get into it, I just want to remind you all that we do reviews on this channel a little different. We start with an overview of the box and everything that's inside of it. Then we look at details, articulation, and posing, which is a nice, fun little segment where we just kind of max out the options of what you can do with your figure. And then we rate it all at the end with an overall score. So that's cool. Let's get into it. So looking at Lightning, look at this box, right? So this is a Japanese product, obviously, I think, because look at that. Lightning. It's Japanese for lightning. It's not, but it is what they call her, Lightning, and they say it, whatever. So this is specifically from the Dissidia game, which I think was just a battle of all of the characters from all the years, right? So this one is made by PlayArts, and they've done a few different versions of her from each iteration of the games. The first one that came out was a little bit smaller than this, not nearly as detailed, and I'll put it on the screen, of course, for you to look at. And then they did Final Fantasy 13-2 and Lightning Returns, so they have a lot of different versions. This is the Dissidia version, and PlayArts Kai is the kind of the series that they've done with a lot of this, and this version is just kind of the most detailed in my opinion between the others, and I think you can see that even from the screenshot that we share. But front of the box, we got the 30th anniversary of Final Fantasy. We've got the side of the box here, the other side. What do we got on the top? So just the normal warning stuff. We got some information here on the bottom. So actual figure in poses on the back of the box, which is nice, and then all of this, which we'll share on the screen, a nice translated version of this, because that's a lot of Japanese that I'm sure a lot of people would like to know, just out of curiosity, what all that says. So when we open it, we've got this nice shot of the figure. I am assuming that it's not a render, and then they just did some Photoshop, obviously, to add this effect, but also to give this motion blur. And then we have this information typed out here, which is in English. So even though this is a heavily Japanese product, as we could tell from the back of the box, this whole section is actually just in English, which is interesting. If you want to read that, you can pause the screen and let me know if there was anything interesting, because I don't care about it. But that's okay, right? We're not here to read, we're here to look at stuff. So clearly the tape is gone on this one. This one has been opened before. Prior to me buying it, it said used on eBay, but also I did open it myself before this review, and then I stopped and I said, I love this thing so much already before I really got into it that I felt it was worthy of a review. So let's go ahead and take it out of the package. All right, so there we go. Obviously in this plastic thing, but look at how they do this packaging on the inside. So the sleeve is also something that contains stuff. Like, this is a helpful, useful way of using the sleeve inside the box. I really like that they did this. If you saw the review I did of the Tamashii Nations Vegeta, they actually did something similar to this too, where they kind of give you the instructions on how all the stuff works. And I think this is cool. I mean, it's kind of obvious, I think, for some of us that the hands just swap out, but there you have instructions, so that's kind of cool. And then the same thing with the stand. There's a lot of pieces here for the base, the stand, and to do different dynamic poses, and it tells you different ways that it can be put together, which is nice. It's a different way to handle packaging, and I love it. So obviously all of that can come out of the plastic. We'll get to it eventually. This is ultimately why we're here. So let's take this plastic off. Plastic shell off. Now we can see these details, and inside this box you can really see how much work that they've put into all of these weapons and the details of the clothing and everything. This is really, really intense. And of course, if you're going beyond a 1/12 scale, you can add more details to things, but it's not far off on some of this stuff to some of the 1/12 items that you might get, I think, to see the difference in this detail. So this is a really fantastic. I'm already a big fan of that kind of somewhat translucent hair. So let's take everything out of the package and see what we got. Okay, so there we go. We've got everything out. There are some screws and nuts there that are going to be used to hold the pieces together on the stand, but not a big deal. If you want quality stands with options, you're just gonna have to put it together yourself, I think. All right, so a nice little overview of everything that's in the packaging. So we've got her full out sword, we've got it folded up, we've got just a handle only option, which I believe gets replaced on part of this. 2 right hands and 1 left hand, plus of course what's already on her by default. We've got the base, all the options there, and then we've got Lightning herself. So let's look at details. So starting with the hand, we've got some nice paint work. Obviously you can kind of see some details going on in this metal bit on her glove. And then of course the details in the hand, you can see the nails. And then we've got this kind of somewhat open hand, but the detail work and the nails and everything are really nice. And the same thing over here. So nice details, you can see some knuckles. And the details behind this handle, looking nice. The paint work is really, really nice. I love this metallic paint for the red area. And the closed up version, which has, so this piece is looking really nice. I am a big fan of the detail work. It is definitely worth, and maybe that's just a thing with the whatever scale this is, 1/9 maybe? I don't know. She's very large, but the detail is fantastic. Again, the handle piece can come out of there, so you can replace it with this one. So if you want it fully closed, it works like this, and I believe we'll go into her satchel on the back. And then we've got the fully extended sword, which again, detail, great. I'm a big fan of this detail work. They definitely didn't mess around. The handle can come off this one as well. So what do we got? I don't know why the handle can come off that. That part is all the same. Why would this come off? Maybe I should read the instructions. The details, look at that. I really like how it's got this weathered look. You know, it's dirty and grungy. Looks like it's been used in battle quite a bit. I am a big fan. This is really, really nice. So looking at Lightning and her details, so you can see obviously the sculpting is just spectacular. Really, really nicely done with the hair. You can see that it's kind of got parts the way it's been molded and put together, but it works really, really well. And this kind of translucent, I don't even know. Yeah, you can kind of see the clothing through it. This is a really cool concept. And it got this kind of silver paint that goes through to give it some extra highlights and stuff. This is really nice. With all of these details and accessories, it would be nice to have an alternate head sculpt, maybe, you know, like in battle, some kind of like angry face that looks like she's fighting. But the details, it's just spectacular. And just doing things at this scale, this is obviously my first time at seeing a figure with this scale, but this is really nice. And I think a lot of it does come down to the manufacturer, right? Play Arts. They're putting in some really nice work here. Now, there are some, you know, weird things about it. Looks like to get maximum articulation, you're gonna have to deal with some kind of weird things where you can almost like see through. Before we get into articulation, let's just keep digging into the details here. So all the buckles and stuff, I mean, look at that. It's like a softer plastic, so it's, you know, bendable, pliable, whatever. But details are really nice. I am really, really digging this brand, which is ultimately why I decided that I needed to review it, even though it's an older item. I felt that it was worth everybody kind of taking a moment to see what this brand is producing, which means that if this is older, the stuff they're doing now has to be insane. And they have a lot of stuff for pre-order. If you are a Final Fantasy fan, you can get Final Fantasy VII. They have a line called Bring Arts instead of Play Arts, and the Bring Arts is kind of preserving the style of the original Final Fantasy VII. Rather than the remake, but it doesn't look like polygons and stuff. It looks really, really cool. And of course I will put that on the screen here so you can see it. But looking at all of her details, even into this satchel thing on her waist, the belts, I mean, it's kind of overwhelming how much detail we can get lost in here, but there's not really anything that looks bad. This cape, I mean, it would be next level if this cape was actually a soft goods item, you know, like real cloth that could drape down and really have some life to it. But instead it's got this kind of pre-molded thing to kind of work around this, which, you know, is fine. And it looks good, it fits in, it doesn't look out of place or anything, but maybe a soft goods item would really just push this thing over the edge. But otherwise, details, I mean, all the way around to the back. And then this blade, which we talked about, So if you take that extra piece off, you can actually slide it into her holster here. So you get that completed look. And man, I am just loving everything about this. Look at even the details in the boots. So no peg holes, which you know how I feel about that. If you've watched any of my other videos, peg holes should pretty much always be there because you don't always want to use a big dynamic stand like this. Sometimes you just need that little extra to hold them up. But you know, maybe she can stand well on her own. I know she has kind of ratcheted joints rather than like free-flowing stuff, so maybe she can stand just fine. So those are the details, so let's get into articulation. So starting at the top, obviously looking at a figure like this, the hair is generally gonna be an issue, but even that collar looks like it's probably gonna get in the way a bit. But this is, you can move it, it's soft. So even if it starts to get in the way, you can still get her head all the way around. So not a whole lot of limitations there. I'm really surprised. So as far as like looking down, wow. That's nearly a perfect downward look. Up, on the other hand, it's technically there, but the collar is blocking her. We also have some head tilts, so we can go left and right. We've got the shoulders, let's see. So they had that kind of weird extra range in the shoulders, so they can really get up high. And then, of course, we can rotate them just fine, but you have this kind of hinge, right? You see that? So you can kind of work them up and down, which is cool. So a little extra range beyond what you would get with some other brands and some other figures. So T-pose, we've got the elbow. Any rotations down the arm? No, just around the elbow. So you can rotate it on this ball joint, and then it's got some great range. So that's beyond 90 degrees, right? So that'd be a 90-degree bend in the arm, and then we can go beyond that. Let's see, all the way down to the wrist. This is one of those brands that uses kind of the exposed ball joints, but that allows you to get really a lot of different range in the joints and stuff. So the wrist, you can get like pretty much any kind of layout that you would possibly want. You can rotate it and then get that if you need to point your sword. So you don't need extra hands with where the hinges are done differently. You just rotate and bend, which is awesome. So that's a really nice way to do it. Obviously, it just can look a little funny because you get these like bubbled joints in the elbows and stuff, but the range is like, it's crazy. Anything around the waist? Yeah, so actually at the belt, which is very well done. So you can actually rotate all the way around there. You can crunch the abs pretty nicely. Do we have some left? Yep, so you can get that waist area, the torso, to do just about anything you'd want. There's nothing below that rotates. Now, as far as the legs go, so we can see that underneath here we've got, it's different, it's done in different layers as far as the skirt part goes. So that's gonna help this leg get pushed out a little bit further without the restrictions of that. But it looks like mostly the restriction is gonna be around these things all just kind of smacking into each other. So it looks like the right leg will probably have, yeah, a lot more range than the left one until you like really kind of push things out of the way and try to get it to move. And then backwards is actually still really good even with this holster back there. Then we have some rotation up there at the upper half of the leg. We have the ratcheting knees, which, man, it's rough, but they're solid. So you don't have to worry about them getting too loose and wobbly or anything like that. These things are gonna lock into place, no problem. And they are double jointed. Get her to kick her own butt. Incredible range every step of the way so far. Do we have any rotation here at the bottom half of the leg? We do not, but we have it all around this ball joint, so much like the wrists. We have rotation all the way around. We've got upward motion, downward, and then if you rotate, so this is a pretty interesting, cool way to do it. So it's not the whole foot that is rotating here, it's just the front half and the bottom of the boot that actually has this kind of sliding rotation, so you can get a better flat stance when you have different poses going, which is pretty cool. Neat way to do it. It's hard to do, but I think you might be able to rotate the foot to get some different movement on top of that ball joint, but it's a little hard to grab to do that. So apparently, yes, this can come off because it did, but you'll notice it has this kind of ball joint under there. So if we put this back on, you can actually have it in like a motion pose, like if the wind's blowing or if she's like mid-air jump or something. So you can actually like rotate this thing and lift it up and down, which is a really cool addition to that. And again, would be really great to make a cloth version of this thing. It would really bump the quality of this figure overall. So yeah, do her knees look a little weird? Yeah, and then there's like this kind of darker pink around the edges, which almost enhances it and tells you, hey, look at how goofy these knees look. But you know, with that you get really, really awesome range, and I think it's just, it's always the toughest part on somebody, especially if they don't have clothes, like baggy, like wrinkles and things in pants. It's always gonna be weird to get a great knee joint that doesn't look weird. I gotta jump back into my own video here because I almost forgot that, yeah, she does do splits a little bit, but again, everything on this side does tend to get in the way, so you gotta really move things around and try to get this to get the maximized articulation in that left leg. But yeah, splits are certainly available, and you can hear those ratchets in there, which is a solid way to do things, I guess. Is, you know, it physically holds up and can withstand the weight of things. And then with the handle coming off of this, I wasn't sure why, but it's because this is too wide down here to get the hand in. So you actually just take it apart, slide the hand on, and then put it back together. So it was actually really smart. Very, very smart way to do it. As far as the stand goes, so there's a couple ways to put this together. So you have two different claws that you will screw together. It comes with a tool in the box, this little plastic piece, which is nice. You don't need to have a socket or anything for this, but you get a small claw and a large claw, and then you get this base arm that can be attached to this one, and you can change the height of it because of these little like hexagons or whatever. And then it has two balancing points in the base, so you can plug it in here or you can plug it in here, depending on where you need the figure to be and where you need to kind of counter that balance for the weight and everything. So really nicely done on all of these pieces. I'm already such a fan. But that's articulation. Let's get into posing. So there we go. We've got Lightning from Final Fantasy, the Dissidia version, and man, this thing is fantastic. So let's get into rating. When we look at details of Lightning, wow, they're really fantastic, and I think it does have a lot to do with the scale. It's just a much larger figure than what you would normally get with like a 112. So I think because of that, we're gonna get details that are kind of heightened, right? So the joints are a little weird, so the elbows kind of get that bubble effect, and then you get the ball joints around the wrists, which kind of stand out, but they're not really too bad. And then the knees, because they kind of added almost like a highlight or a low light to the edges of the skin there. It kind of looks a little strange. So we'll give details a 4 out of 5, and that's just being really, really picky. I want to give it a 5 out of 5, which brings us to articulation. And articulation was way more than I thought I would get out of this thing. Mostly because the shoulders, which are, you know, kind of interesting, but they actually help a lot with the range. And because those ball joints around the wrists and the ankles, you just get this heightened level of articulation. So for that, we will give her a 4 out of 5. It's just almost perfect. Aside from a couple pieces getting in the way, which really isn't the problem of the joints, it's just, you know, the back of the collar, this bag on her leg, but overall, this is really, really nice. So that brings us to posing, and wow, we really got to have a lot of fun with posing. This is just an awesome figure. The stances, you can really push some stuff because of the way those shoes articulate, or boots, whatever. So posing, we'll give her a 5 out of 5. And that is the overall rating, which I think is very well deserved. This is a fantastic piece, and now Play Arts is going to be one of my favorite brands to keep an eye on to see what all they bring to this space. They do some other stuff, some other characters from like animes and things that I'm not following, so I don't know. Final Fantasy, I do, so I'm going to stick to some of that stuff, but I hope that they can branch out and do some other things because, man, I am very much a fan of this brand, and if you haven't, please go check them out. See what they have available to buy now or to pre-order, and then maybe something like this and some of the other figures are worth grabbing from eBay and other sellers, and just make an offer, because that's what I did, and I got a price that I was happy with that wasn't too far off from their original listings, at least according to what's on their website right now. Now, the next one from them that I would like to get is Squall from Final Fantasy VIII, another fan favorite, right? Why am I not getting Final Fantasy VII? I don't know. It's the obvious choice. Everyone loves it. They even got a remake out of it. Anyway, at the end of the day, is it worth the price? I think so. There's nothing really about it that made me feel like this is, like an overpriced thing because of third-party prices or anything. So I think this is great. It's big, and that helps with the cost, but details and articulation and everything, find yourself something from this brand because you're gonna love it. But thank you so much for coming along and watching this. Even though it is an older item, I'm glad you were able to join me in this experience, and let me know down in the comments if there's a Final Fantasy that you love that you would like to grab a figure from Play Arts Kai. And if you're interested in other items that are 100 plus and you want to see what kind of reviews come out of those, because I'm not always a fan, then watch this one right here because that's a different ending. We'll see you next time.